They figured they still had their 3 friends for backup.
I had a few more skills on hand, too. 5, according to the sage.
Keen smell, thought communication, coercion, shadow motion, and dark lightning.
Shadow motion was something Ranga and his pack were actually practicing at the moment.
They could hide inside the shadow of their partner, then reappear on the spot whenever they were called.
They were still getting the hang of the get inside a shadow bit, so it'd likely be a while to come.
Dark lightning, meanwhile. That, I didn't even have to test. If I tried it out now, my adversaries would be charbroiled, I was sure. I had underestimated the stupidity of them both, so things could get ugly around here.
Either way, dark lightning was out of the question.
Sure would have been nice if coercion actually worked on them.
Talk about being too stupid to find your ass on the bottom of you. The audience, meanwhile, were clearly quaking in their boots. Some had already lost their footing.
Sheesh.
Well, whatever. I've had enough of this. Take me on. I gave them a free swipe to start.
Speaking of, what would happen to the form I was mimicking if I was damaged? I did actually test that once. I deliberately kept getting myself attacked in Armosaurus lizard form. What I found was that once I took enough damage, I automatically reverted back to slime form, although the damage would be applied only to the mimic, not to my slime body.
I suppose the magicules forming the mimicry also protected my body from the blows.
The restrictions I had to work with were the 3-ish minutes I had to wait before switching to another form, and the magic I had to consume for each mimic type.
But the magic wasn't a problem, really, considering the amount I could work with.
In other words, I could let these guys flail at me all they wanted. Even if they were a hell of a lot stronger than they appeared, I'd just revert to slime form and scoot off.
Simple. Ha! Prepare to die. Answering my call, the swordsman lunged at me with a shout.
Rah! Windbreaker slash. Is that a swordsman's skill?
The blade of his sword started glowing green. But it didn't hurt me, sad to say.
My hide snapped his mighty blade cleanly in half.
As he attacked, his partner threw a set of 3 daggers at me.
I appreciated the gesture. 3 at once had to be tricky to pull off, but none of them had enough force to even split a Tempest Starwolf's hair.
What was that? I sneered at them, trying my best to play the villain figure.
Really, though, what was that?
I was completely undamaged.
Was that skill name just for show?
No. That pelt of yours.
It's too tough.
It can't be. It can't be. My sword is crafted from silver.
It's supposed to hurt monsters more. Silver's a relatively weak metal, isn't it?
Brother. Hey.
Help me, you guys. Apparently the swordsman didn't care about saving face any longer. I guessed that other trio was with him after all.
Ha! It's over for you now.
Oh, man. I really didn't think we'd have to wade into this, man. A transforming slime, huh?
Interesting. Think I'll dissect it once it's dead. You haven't moved this whole battle, have you? Bet that magic fades away the moment you do, huh? Am I right, or what?
The 3 of them prattled on as they joined their friends, making for a total of 5 surrounding me, and went on the attack. The swordsman summoned magic blades of wind, his companion producing a shortsword to swipe at me with. Their heavy fighter shouted Grandbreaker slash. As he hefted up a great axe and slammed it down, the wizard tossed a few fireballs my way, and his monk friend built a magical defense for himself, expecting me to target him first.
As parties went, it was rather well balanced. The only problem they had was that none of their attacks did a thing against me.
Once the dust settled, the group lifted their eyes, daring to take a look at me.
They were too shocked to speak.
Maybe coercion would work now. With an earth-shaking roar, I invoked it, but, alas, I screwed it up. I didn't mean for the audience to faint to the ground, too, with assorted substances welling up around their pants.
What a disaster. Now what? This'll be such a pain to deal with. The party?
Well, they had just taken a coercion blow at point-blank range.
I doubt I need to go into detail on what happened to them.
My magic sense skill started picking up on the dwarven security force running our way.
It's over, I whispered. Over, indeed.
I looked down at them, wondering how they were ever going to clean up their undergarments after this, trying to keep my new reality at bay for just a few more moments. I'm really sorry about this. I bowed deeply, or intended to, anyway, inside the guardroom. After the ruckus we had caused, there was no way security was going to let the lot of us off with a slap on the wrist. After only a few moments, a squadron of guards was surrounding us. Well, me, really, given how unconscious the other 5 were. I know.
I thought.
I'll just turn into a slime and slink off.
And I tried to.
But before I could move, they grabbed me en masse and, squish, lifted me up.
So much for that. The soldiers flashed me their best no struggling, now smiles.
The sweat running down their foreheads, however, indicated the effort they had to expend to make this arrest.
Wait.
I shouted, doing my best frenzied Gobto impression.
We didn't do anything. We're the victims here. All right, came the smiling reply. We'll hear you out in the guardroom. Can't expect to run off after that, now can you? Not much else I can do, I guess. What's Gobto doing?
I glanced back, only to find he still had his eyes closed and his hands over his ears.
Oh, what is he thinking?
He's not, clearly.
He's too stupid to. At least he takes orders well. Luckily, I managed to shout loudly enough to attract his attention.
Before long, we were all on our merry way to the security guard's office.
So here's what happened. 1. I got accosted. 2. I turned into a wolf.
3.
I kind of howled a little. Whatcha think?
Not my fault, right? I thought as I glanced at the soldier standing above me. He was still smiling at me, the expression suited this gruff, friendly-looking dwarf and his long, bushy beard.
Except for those unfortunate veins popping out of his forehead.
Why did you take me along with you, officer?
You damned fool. What do you think you're saying?
Our chiefs are yelling at us because you were accosted.
What?
Really?
I'm sorry.
I've messed up again, haven't I? Well, there's nothing to be done about it this time, but try to be a bit more careful, all right?
Phew. Guess they finally saw the light.
Good thing my blame everyone else skill from my human years was still going strong.
It was an advanced ability, earned only after years of life experience. The key was to never give your foe a single moment to doubt you. It was hard.
And maybe I phrased it a bit jokily, but my account pretty well summarized the whole thing.
It sounded as though the witnesses they talked to said the same thing.
So what was that wolf, then?
The soldier watching over me asked. What's he mean, what is it?
The species, you mean?
It's a... No, not the name.
What I mean is, why did that kind of monster show up around here?
Where'd it come from, where'd it go? I wanna hear everything you know. I'd told him that was just mimicry.
He didn't believe me?
I thought I was pretty open with him.
I knew it was standard procedure for a hero to hide his secret identity, but I wasn't exactly a hero anyway. Well, I told you.
That was just me transformed.
Huh? Look, it's already rare for a slime to talk, and you want me to add shape-shifting to the package, too?
No, I mean. Look, would you like me to show you? Humph.
Nah, it's fine. But if you can shapeshift, how is that possible?
You're a slime, aren't you? That. Wait. How should I answer that? I don't think he'd buy it if I just said it's an intrinsic. Or whatever. That'd just put me on the same level as Gobto. Think, man.
You gotta come up with a decent excuse, now.
Well, I was actually cursed.
My talents must have sparked some jealousy, I guess.
I'm capable of wielding illusory magic.
Oh, really?
A curse, is it? Then what? Then,
Well, I know a few illusory spells, but I was still just a student at the time, so this evil mage turned me into a slime. I'm on a journey to find a way to undo the curse, and, that's pretty much it. Why'd you run into an evil wizard, then?
Why'd he curse you instead of just killing you?
NNNGH. This would go a lot easier if you'd just believe me, man.
You don't have to be so obstinate about it. Though I guess I'd be, too.
If he actually bought my story, that'd make him more gullible than a goblin.
This little back and forth between me and the soldier went on for another 2 hours or so.
By the end of our intensive debate, I had just about an entire novel's worth of backstory. A story about a forlorn young, and beautiful, girl, brutally transformed into a slime by an evil mage. In the midst of our tit-for-tat, if you want to call it that, the soldier's questions helped me weave a grand story of heroic tragedy in my mind. I was a young prodigy, a girl inherently gifted in the arts of transformation and illusory magic. A cruel witch had cast a terrible spell on me, and I was traveling to rid myself of the curse.
Why did this have to happen?
And why did I turn myself into a magical girl along the way? And the worst part of it was, whenever I said something that wandered off script, the soldier's next question would help me fix the mistake. Oh, right.
I'd say to myself as the tale meandered its merry way down the path.
By the end of it, both myself and the soldier were enthralled, hoping against hope that the girl would somehow succeed on her quest. Our eyes burned with passion, at least, his did.
Truly, we had a connection that went beyond mere words. All right. That's it for the report.
Thank you for your cooperation.
But we're going to need to. Slam. Before the soldier could finish, the large door behind him opened. Another soldier rushed in.
Sir. An Armosaurus just showed up in the mines. It's already injured several miners at their posts.
What?
Well, did you defeat it? We're good there.
A suppression force is on its way. But some of the miners are fairly roughed up.
I don't know if there's a war underway or something, but the city shops are out of medicine, and the castle won't let us access their stockpile. What about our healers? That's the thing, sir. The injured were deep inside, mining magic ore.
The healers at the guardhouse are all out handling other calls, so all we have left is a single novice. Ah, damn it all. Sounds rough. Not that I care. Just take some from the castle, if it's that important.
I thought, but I do have a few potions on me, though.
What should I do?
It wasn't as if I expected the gesture to testify to my character and get me off the hook.
We just need to make the world a better place is all.
I know it sounds fishy coming from me, but
compassion is its own best reward, and all that. I'll get karma back for it someday.
Sir.
What? I'm busy.
I'm done with you for now, but I can't let you go yet.
Stay in this room until things calmed down a little. No, not that, I've got this.
I took a recovery potion out.
Or spat it out, is the way he probably saw it.
What's that?
A recovery potion. Drink it, rub it in, it's high quality. What's a slime like you doing with that? Oh, come on.
What happened to my story?
Why is he treating me like a slime again? He was egging me on during that entire interrogation, wasn't he? Not that I wasn't an eager participant, but that kind of doesn't matter right now, does it? Go ahead, try it. How many do you need? We've got 6 men down, but are you sure? The soldier who just stormed in gave me a quizzical stare.
If I were him, I probably wouldn't take a potion from a monster, either. TCH.
Stay here, all right? Let's go.
But, Captain, that's a monster?
Enough from you. Just take me over to them.
The bushy-bearded captain snatched up the 6 recovery potions I provided and ran off.
What with the grand fantasy tale we'd just woven, I supposed I had gained his trust somewhat.
Maybe he was a nice guy after all. Didn't expect him to be a full-fledged captain, though. Is it over? Gobta asked after silently nodding at everything I'd said before now.
No, but I guess we'll sit here and see what happens.
Got it, sir.
Then we stared into space.
The soldiers who peeked in on occasion would give us confused looks, but otherwise, not much happened for an hour. I was practicing my sticky thread moves a bit when I heard the captain's heavy footsteps. The silken whip zipped back into my body as I waited for him to come in.
Gobta was asleep, proving that maybe he was smarter than I was all along. Thank you, sir.
The bearded captain thundered as he stormed into the room, head bowed.
The miners filed in behind him.
You're the one with the potions?
Thanks a ton.
My arm was pretty torn up. I didn't think I'd ever work again, even if I survived.
Thank you.
The last guy didn't say anything before they all left, but I was fairly sure he was thankful, too. Glad to see the potions worked.
By this time, it was past sunset.
It was almost fully dark outside when the captain started talking with me again, seriously, this time.
It turned out the quintet who tried taking me on were members of this nation's free guild. They had talent, but they also had a prior reputation as rabble-rousers. That ought to teach 'em a lesson. The captain said with a roaring laugh.
The guard was already certain that we were guilty of nothing, but I was still being detained out of respect for the other victims I had inadvertently inconvenienced with my actions.
Nobody was pressing charges, though. I suppose they figured asking restitution for crapping their pants wasn't the shrewdest of social moves, so I told him the truth.
I was helping rebuild a goblin village, and we needed arms and clothing, as well as someone who could provide a little on-site guidance.
The captain listened intently, some of his men chiming in on occasion.
They even asked Gobta a few questions, despite his darting eyes and bewildered expression.
The next day, we were still in the guardroom. Gobta had borrowed another cell to sleep in, which I assumed he was still using.
Having nothing better to do, I was watching some dwarven personnel run through morning training in the field behind the guardhouse. Swinging heavy wooden swords around to work on their speed, sparring a bit in simulated combat, running a few laps, the usual. I sat there, taking it all in and imagining how they'd fare against the assorted creatures I had predated by this point. It was a bit like a game to me, but would the sage mind if I used it like this?
Seems like kind of a waste of talent, but what the hell? It'll be fun. Turned out, the guards barely stood a chance. Even if I gave myself a handicap, there were only just a few of them who could beat the bat and the lizard. In a one-on-one matchup, the scales tipped pretty heavily toward the monsters, but since the dwarves always seemed to operate in teams of 4 to 6, a few of the combined parties could take on the spider fairly well. Even all 20 of them out in the field couldn't take on the centipede, though. I wasn't expecting these guys to be special forces types, of course, so the results made sense to me. They were just about wrapped up by the time Gobta woke. The captain checked in at around the same time. "All right," he said, "you're free to go."
"Sorry I kept you in here for so long, I was beholden to keep you overnight, at least."
"Apologies."
"Oh, no.
It saved me one night's hotel cost, at least." "Glad you see it that way. Here, let me make it up to you."
"I can introduce you to a talented blacksmith I know."
"That would be perfect. Thank you." Things were looking up, finally.
We just got priority entry, 1, inspection, schminspection, and we had some extra money to spend. I thought finding a weaponsmith who wouldn't rip me off at first sight would be a chore, too, but a military referral was about the best I could ask for. Maybe I can afford to be a bit optimistic after all.
In exchange for that. A catch? The only catches I ever liked were the ones on porn sites.
If you have any of those recovery potions left, would you be interested in letting go of them? Aha.
They must really be short on them, huh? That soldier mentioned that yesterday.
Well, I've got a ton I could sell you guys, but I don't really know the going rate.
Now what? Why not?
I had a manufacturing cost of exactly 0 on those things anyway.
If he wanted some, he could have some. All right, I replied.
It'll depend on how many, though. I need to keep a few for myself, too.
Any extras you're willing to part with are fine by me. Even if it's just one.
Rather odd way of putting it, isn't it? I thought he was trying to rebuild the guard's stockpile.
One's not going to be enough in a pinch, is it? Well, whatever. Maybe times were just that tough.
Okay, well, how about 5, then? 5.
Ah, that'd be wonderful.
Sure. Oh, also, I'm pretty sure they'll still work even if you dilute them a little bit, all right? If it's just a regular slash wound, 10 parts water to 1 part potion ought to do the trick.
The captain nodded eagerly, fully convinced.
I spat out my 5 potions, and he responded by giving me a small pouch. Inside I could see a selection of gold coins. I know it's not much, he explained, but I hope you'll accept this.
I'll give you 5 gold pieces for each one of these. 25 gold, then? Fine by me. I don't know if I'm undercutting myself or not, but I'm not in a position to haggle.
Better figure out how much that is, though, exactly.
If I could. Not enough? I'm doing my best here, sir. No, the price is perfectly fine, but I needed to ask you.
Huh?
It is? So what did you need?
That's not a good reaction. So I'm being ripped off after all?
I knew I should have started higher. Oh well.
The captain seems like a nice enough guy. I doubt he's fleecing me that badly. I'm sorry to admit it, but I'm not exactly sure what this money is worth, or what prices are even like around here.
If you could give me some guidance, that would really help. I'm just a slime, besides.
Way to contradict yesterday's magical girl saga, man.
Good thing he apparently never bought it in the first place. We wound up having a long conversation before Gobta and I set off.
Soon, I was out in the fresh air of freedom again, but not before lunch.
The captain insisted.
I couldn't taste anything, but the appreciation was sweet, I guess.
For the first time in a while, I enjoyed a meal.
Ugh.
Why do I have to be so busy? Kaijin the dwarf grumbled to himself.
What do they mean, the Eastern Empire might be on the move?
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. He had reason to doubt it. Peace had reigned over the kingdom for 300 years.
The empire had all the riches it could ever want. What motivation could it possibly have to stage an invasion?
That was what he didn't understand.
Of course, Kaijin added to himself, I doubt the weaponsmiths of this city would mind a good war to fill their coffers. But, why is my work so busy all of a sudden?
And that wasn't his only problem.
He scowled.
Curse that damned minister. He rubbed his forehead as he imagined himself taking a hammer to the man and sighed. A lot of sighing lately. There wasn't much time left. A refusal would damage his reputation. I can't do it wouldn't be an excuse. He was waiting for some of his friends to get back to him, and depending on their reports, all could be lost.
He had built a decent name for himself as a weaponsmith, but he wasn't omnipotent. What kind of smith could craft weapons without any raw materials to work with? Finally, he heard the news he had been waiting for. Sorry, one said as he came through the door.
We wanted to contact you yesterday, but we ran into one heck of a distraction.
They were 3 men, dwarves, all brothers, the trio Kaijin had assigned mining duties to. The eldest was Garm, an armor crafter with long, muscular arms. The middle child was Dold, who was known around the kingdom for his intricate handiwork. The youngest, Mildo, rarely spoke but was skillful at almost anything he did, architecture, art, you name it.
A sort of savant. Any one of them could have been talented enough to run a successful business by himself, but they all had a critical disadvantage. Outside of their individual God-given talents, they were utterly hopeless, barely capable of dressing themselves without an instruction manual. None of them had a head for business or laying the groundwork for a successful career. They seemed to prefer letting other people use them instead. That was how they wound up entrusting their shop to someone who stole it from them, falling into the trap of an apprentice jealous of their natural talent,
getting bullied by the government after they botched a ministerial request. In the end, with nowhere else to go, they turned to Kaijin, an old friend and practically a fourth brother to them in their youth. He wished they had called on him sooner, but that was neither here nor there. They needed some place to lie low, and he could use some help around the shop. The only problem was that Kaijin had no work for them.
He was a merchant dealing in battle gear, and he already had steady connections for all his merchandise except the weapons. Those he made himself, and he figured he could keep the trio busy making the rest of his lineup, but he couldn't have them start immediately.
Telling his armor and accessory contacts out of the blue that their services were no longer needed would lead to easily avoidable trouble.
Until things settled down a little, he would have to continue with business as usual.
Instead, with few other options available, Kaijin was having them direct a team of laborers as they mined for ore and other materials. The brothers had arrived in Kaijin's shop with a wild story about a monster.
It was the last thing he wanted to hear. He rubbed his forehead.
"Well, at least you're all fine," he told them.
"Glad you got away before you were hurt at all." And he was. If they weren't injured, they could go right back to ore collecting.
His friend's safety was naturally important, but, still.
The three brothers gave each other awkward looks.
"Well, we didn't get away, exactly."
"No. In fact, we can still hardly believe what happened to us yesterday." They moved on with the story, a tale of a mysterious slime, who provided them life-saving medicine. It seemed like a bunch of ridiculous ravings, but these people weren't ones to make up stories. They didn't have the talent for it. So did the whole affair really happen? Perhaps it didn't matter.
It was true enough, he knew, that people had been attacked in the mines.
And that meant no mining for a while. The workmen he had hired all quit yesterday, and headed for the hills the moment the monster news broke. And why wouldn't they? Their brethren were injured, no doubt.
Now would be the perfect time to call on the services of the Free Guild, but that was probably equally impossible.
He had filed a mining request long ago, to deafening silence. He knew he wasn't the only one, either. A shortage was starting to rear its ugly head.
Hiring guild members as mine guards wouldn't accomplish much, either. They weren't cheap, and even then, they didn't lift a finger beyond what the guild paid them for. Guild guards did just that, guard, and nothing else.
And if this was the kind of monster that could take out a B-graded adventurer, it was hopeless. There was no way to turn a profit. In fact, this would bankrupt him. Why did such a powerful monster have to show up in such a damned shallow part of the mine? Kaijin let out a deep sigh. Now what? There wasn't much time left. Maybe he'd have to just go down there and grab the ore himself. No better ideas were springing to mind. All that filled it right now was the passing tick-tock of his destiny. The four of them exchanged glances, all at a complete loss.
That was right about when a set of rather odd-looking customers showed up. "Yo! You in there?"
shouted the captain, Kaido, as it happened.
As we had conversed, we'd grown friendlier and friendlier with each other.
We were on a first-name basis now, and it turned out his older brother was in charge of the shop we were visiting.
It was a cozy place, the kind where you'd expect the owner to be a gruff old man behind the counter. "Hello. Excuse us," I said as I followed Kaido in.
The moment we entered, we felt several dubious gazes upon us.
"Ah." The three miners who had thanked me for saving them yesterday lifted their eyebrows high.
They looked right as rain, but their expressions weren't exactly jubilant.
Just as expected, the man behind them was a perfect image of the grizzled, grouchy old civil works guys I once had to deal with.
He was the proprietor, no doubt. Didn't look much like Kaido. "What do you want?"
"You know these guys?"
"Kaijin, this is it. The slime. The one who saved us."
"Yeah.
It sure is. And you're our boss's brother, aren't you, Captain?"
"Oh ho. The slime, you say?"
"We were just talking about you."
"Thanks for getting these guys out of a bad way yesterday." "Oh, no, it was nothing." "Okay, it was something.
But,
you know."
Ha 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 ha. It should be against the law to compliment me. I always let it go to my head, until I finally float up into outer space. I probably wouldn't be coming back down for a while.
So, the old guy said, rearing back a bit, what brings you here today?
I decided to go into full detail.
We all piled into seats situated deeper inside, and Kaido was kind enough to provide a quick recap for me. I added a few choice details, and things moved along at a good pace.
That younger one, though.
Mildo, was it?
I wish he'd say something.
Like, how's he managed to stay in conversations by saying nothing at all?
It floored me. All right, the old guy answered. I understand. But what do you want? I can't do anything for you.
I've got a job from a certain country I gotta deal with, too.
None of this leaves the room, but...
Then it was his turn to talk, deliberately leaving out some of the finer details, as it was all classified. Basically, a number of countries were sending out orders for weapons and armor, spooked that a certain idiot nation might be trying to hatch a war on them all.
It connected to why the guard was out of medicine yesterday, as well as the lack of raw materials plaguing the shops.
So, he continued, tapping at his head, I managed to pull an all-nighter to get an order for 200 steel spears squared away, but I gotta come up with 20 swords, too, and I ain't even got one yet.
There's just no material.
Why don't you just say you can't fill the order? Kaido asked.
Fool.
You think I didn't, at first? But that damned Minister Vesta told me, so you're saying the great Kaijin, renowned across the entire kingdom, can't even fill a simple order like this one?
Is that it? In front of the king himself, no less. Can you believe the damned idiot? In between the cursing and the screaming, I learned that Mildo, the taciturn third brother, had denied a request from Vesta to build a house for him.
The minister had taken it personally, badgering him about it to the point that Mildo had had to go into exile with Kaijin.
Sounded like a stupid grudge to have.
So is this guy maybe buying up all the kingdom's raw materials so the shops can't sell anything?
It sounds plausible to me.
What's the difference between lances and swords? I asked. I need special ore for the swords, the old guy spat out. Magic ore.
The spears are just simple steel spikes. Without the right materials to work with, even a master artisan is merely a man. It must have been incredibly frustrating.
The minister must have been waiting for him to show up, hat in hand, begging for mercy.
And that's not the half of it.
It takes a full day to complete even one of those swords.
Even if I built an assembly line and streamlined everything I could, it'd still take me 2 weeks to make 20.
I thought to ask about the deadline but stopped.
I could read the answer in his face anyway. I have until the end of this week, he groaned. First thing next week, I'm charged with delivering them to the king.
It's a task for the kingdom, and every shop has been asked to do the same. If I can't, they could strip my artisan's license from me.
So 5 days left, it sounded like.
And it seemed doubtful that much work would happen today, so basically.
What a tough situation.
Wait, why am I here?
None of this has anything to do with me.
And, hang on, did he say magic ore? I have some of that, don't I?
Not that it matters. The next time I looked up, I realized that everyone was looking at me. I don't like all these dudes staring at me, you know.
Who do they think a slime is, anyway?
Whatever. Time to fling a few serious favors around.
They better help me get that goblin village going later.
Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha.
What a trivial issue.
Old man. You think you could use this?
Then, with a small thud, I hand-delivered a quantity of extracted ore on top of the work desk in front of me.
Then I hopped on the sofa, lay back, and put my legs up, or felt like I did. Wait. Whoa.
That's magic ore.
And, my God, look at how pure it is.
Ha. Not magic ore, man.
Already processed it for ya.
That's a hunk of pure magisteel. Come on, old man, your eyes giving out on you? I asked. If they couldn't even see what this metal was, they couldn't have been worth much.
I'll sell the materials to you, but that's it.
I'm running a business here, sort of.
What? No. It can't be.
This entire piece is magisteel?
He finally noticed. His shock surprised me a bit. You'll let me have this?
I mean, I'll pay the going price for it, of course.
Ha.
Gotcha.
Ooh, about that.
NGGH, what do you want?
I'll do anything I can for this. Now that's what I wanted to hear.
You heard what me and my team are up to, right? I need your help finding someone who'll travel to the village and give us some technical guidance.
What? Is that all you need?
PFFT. I need some connections to clothing and weapon suppliers, too.
And armor. If that's all it is, then of course.
And so Old Man Kaijin and I forged a verbal contract for the hunk of magisteel.
We agreed to iron out the details after his work was done.
Judging by his reaction, I probably could have wrung him for a little more, but no point being too greedy.
Whenever I tried that, it always blew up in my face. Even I learn from my mistakes sometimes.
Kaido took his leave after we all finished with dinner. Guess the captain of the border guard can afford to skip work all afternoon. Nice of him to bring me here, though.
The three dwarf brothers took turns thanking me profusely yet again. They felt a bit out of place, no doubt, and at fault for the government's toying around with Kaijin.
So why not come along with us? I asked.
Their jaws dropped. Then they started discussing it with each other. To me, that sounded like the best thing for their predicament. The next day, even though he had all the materials he needed, that deadline still looked impossible to me. Time to come out with it.
You've got 4 days left, Kaijin. You think you can finish it up?
No, to be honest. But I gotta.
I didn't think a can-do attitude was going to help much.
What I did know was that if something was impossible, it was simply impossible. It didn't become doable until all the right elements were in place.
Sheesh.
I already got my foot in the door. Might as well go all in. Well, I think I've got an idea.
For starters, could you make just one sword for me?
The best quality you can manage. What? But you're a complete amateur. What could you do? I can't tell you. But you gotta believe me. If you don't, then go ahead. Keep going.
You'll probably lose your license, but...
So I can trust you?
Because if I can't, you better not expect payment for that magisteel.
I won't be able to take care of myself, much less cover you. You keep your promise, though, I swear I'll keep mine.
I'll give you the best swordsmith this kingdom has.
We have a deal. And promises are made to be kept. Off we went into the workshop.
I owed Kaijin one for letting me rest in his spare apprentice's chamber anyway, so I wanted to hold up my end of the bargain. When we entered, we found the three brothers staring at the hunk of magisteel on the table, sighing to themselves as they turned it over in their hands, scrutinizing every surface. The chunk I'd spat out was about the size of a fist. Was it that rare?
They sure acted that way. What are you talking about? Kaijin exclaimed when I asked about it. And according to his explanation,
magic ore was a raw material that was refined to make magisteel. Even the base ore could rival gold in value, for a simple reason: it was both rare and useful for a variety of applications. It all came down to the magicules that seemed to form nearly everything in this world, something that Earth seemed to do just fine without, but that played a huge role over here.
On rare occasions, when a monster was defeated, it would drop an entire chunk of magicules, referred to as magic stone.
This was a sort of portable energy source, and it served as the fuel for something called spirit engineering, an invention exclusive to this world. Magic stones came in levels of purity, and the purer ones were used as cores inside assorted products. Even ornaments could harness this energy for special effects. The resulting clothing and accessories could boost the wearer's abilities, grant them additional effects, and do any number of other things. Now, the main difference between plain old ore and magical ore was that the latter could be obtained only in areas where higher-level monsters lurked.
It required the combination of regular ore, a large concentration of magicules, and eons of time for the ore to absorb the magic, and make the transformation, a sort of geological mutation.
Of course, any place with a lot of magic also tended to have a lot of monsters. Not the run-of-the-mill kind adventurers could kill for pocket change, you wouldn't find any magic or around them.
You'd have to travel to places with at least B-ranked monsters in them.
As a tangent, Kaijin finally gave me a full description of how the ranking system worked for monsters. Oh,
I said.
So I'd be, like, a B or so, maybe.
I imagined everyone was thinking the same thing. Except for Gobta, who was a little slow. Let's leave him alone for now.
Regardless, the point was that magic ore didn't just pop up out of nowhere. What's more, the magisteel extracted from it took up 3, maybe 5% of its total mass. Even a fist-sized chunk of that steel was worth at least 20 times its weight in gold. It also appeared that prices, in general, averaged out to near the same as they did in my old world. Gold was used as currency because it was worth a lot, just like back home. As a result, all the countries had adopted gold as a currency standard. I kept the fact that I had a huge store of these magisteel hunks in my stomach a secret.
Honestly, it was getting a little frightening. No way they could have known, but what if they had? Or was that just my paranoid, lower middle-class upbringing coming out?
Now, on to the real issue.
Magisteel was rare, certainly, but that wasn't what made it so valuable. That lay in how readily adaptable it was to serving as a conduit for magical force. One could control magicules through the power of imagination, to some extent.
My magic sense skill worked that way, but even control water worked by manipulating the ambient magic around me.
Most monster skills harnessed it one way or another as well.
I didn't know that much about magic spells, really, but I figured they worked on the same premise. So what happened if a weapon was made of material infused with vast amounts of magic? Amazingly, it became a weapon that could mature.
How classic.
Or, man, now I want one.
I almost said so out loud before stopping myself just in time.
I mean, think about it, a sword that gradually molded itself to your ideal shape based on what you wanted from it. Depending on your own magical force, you might even be able to transform it mid-battle. And since it was so compatible with magic, it'd help boost your skills, too. Basically, unless you were really handy with a weapon, you were always going to be better off with a magically infused one.
But what if, although this would take a lot of skill and money, you made a blade of pure magisteel and inserted a magic stone into it?
Could you make, like, flame swords and blizzard swords and stuff?
My creative juices started flowing.
My heart sang, demanding Kaijin make one right this minute.
But I would have to be patient.
The next magic stone I get my hand on, though. For sure. After that quick lesson, Kaijin buckled down and went to work.
I watched him as his would-be young apprentice.
Gobta was probably sleeping somewhere, besides. Swords, of course, came in a wide array of shapes and sizes. I, of course, pictured a Japanese-style katana as the strongest one out there, but even katanas came in all kinds of shapes.
That was what made me so curious about the kind of sword he'd make.
10 hours later, he was finished. It looked, to me, like a plain old longsword, and, whoa, there was a lot of magisteel left.
And here I was worried whether a fist-sized lump would be enough for even one.
Turned out Kaijin couldn't even guess how much it had cost to use 100% magisteel on everything.
I suppose not.
No wonder nobody's come up with a flame sword or a blizzard sword or even a thunder sword.
It had cost too much. Makes sense.
Instead, magisteel formed only the core of the weapon, and the rest of the blade was crafted from regular steel instead. That core was all it needed for its magic to work its way into the steel, eventually merging itself with the whole sword.
That, he said, was why a weapon grew stronger as it was used over time.
The blade would never rust or lose its shape, it could just use ambient magicules to regenerate itself. Oddly enough, though, even these magic swords had their lifespans. If they were bent too far or otherwise warped beyond recognition, the magic would leak out, leading to rapid weathering. Kaijin showed me his freshly forged sword as he spoke.
It was all so interesting to me.
I took the weapon in hand as I marveled over it. All right, not in hand, but close enough.
It was simple in make, straight as an arrow. No bells or whistles.
It wasn't meant strictly for slicing like a katana, but the blade seemed suited to slashing.
But this was just a base. Over time, I supposed, the sword would adapt itself to whatever its user wanted from it. No wonder the forger kept things simple. Okay.
So Kaijin and his team had crafted this lovely sword for me, as promised.
Now it was my turn.
Right.
I said. Time for me to pull a little secret work for you.
I'm sorry, but would you all mind leaving me alone here for now?
There was no way I could let them see this. It would be too hard to explain, for one thing.
Well, you have everything you need here, I suppose.
But are you sure? I would be glad to help. I'll be fine, thank you.
Just promise me you won't peek into this room for the next 3 days. Swear it.
All right. I'll trust you and wait. With that, Kaijin and his men left.
Gobta, too, for some stupid reason. What goes through his mind, day in and day out, that keeps him alive?
I've got to wring it out of him someday. So our recipe today's for a longsword. Couldn't be simpler.
First, take this completed sample, and swallow it up. Next, take the rest of the ingredients lined up here, and swallow them up, too. Munch, munch, gulp.
Mix well in your stomach, and notice.
Analysis target, longsword.
Successful. Creating copy. Successful. Repeat 19 times. Bon appetit. Easy, wasn't it? Kids, don't try this at home. And with that ridiculous mental commentary, I set to work.
Yikes. Each copy was taking, 10 seconds. 190 seconds, 3 minutes and change, and I had 19 swords scattered around the room. It had been maybe 5 minutes since I shooed Kaijin and the rest out of the room. I mean, I figured I could do it, but it was just so easy.
And people spent entire lifetimes crafting stuff like this. I started to feel as if I had done something shamelessly rude to them. This predator is such a cheat code.
So now what?
I told them not to open the door for 3 days. Am I supposed to just hole up in here until then? No. I can't just sit here like the blob that I am. Maybe I should come clean. So I did. I threw the door open and stepped outside.
The 4 dwarves immediately stood up, giving me worried looks.
Gobta was sleeping.
God, 5 minutes?
Yep. That was when I decided I had to do something about him. What is it? Did something happen? Are you short on something?
Or it didn't work, then? Yeah, well, actually. I sized up the dwarves, whose eyes were laden with self-torment. They hurt to look at.
But I just couldn't resist. I had to put on an act. Why did I have to be so mean to people all the time? Not even my death and rebirth had cured me of that habit.
Ha ha.
Just kidding. They're all done, actually.
What?
Guess I can't blame them.
Cheers.
We were at a kind of dwarven nightclub, holding a rather anticlimactic wrap-up party. The weapons were safely in the king's hands, and it was time to celebrate. I mean, I told them they didn't have to.
Or,
come on.
There's lots of beautiful ladies in there. Yeah. Young ones, and older, too, if you like a little weathering on 'em.
It's the perfect place for any gentleman.
Come on, Rimuru.
We can't go out without the big guy himself. It was 4 against 1, so I had no choice. Never a dull moment, huh? The place was called the Night Butterfly.
Were the hosts really butterflies, then? They'd better not turn out to be moths.
Not that I really cared. I was a gentleman. I'd try anything once, I thought as we strolled in.
Ooh, welcome. Welcome, sirs. Fuer. The place was lined up and down with babes.
Whoa.
Their ears were so long, too.
Is it hot in here, or is it just those elves?
Dang.
Oh my god, and their clothes are so thin. It's like I can almost see through, but I can't.
Damn it, and I got magic sense going at max force, too. They've got the boundaries of their clothing down pat, don't they? Is this meant to be some kind of challenge? NNNNGH. Ooh, look at you, cutie. Or, I saw him first. Eep. Boing. Boing.
There it is.
My entire body is jiggling.
And I can feel something soft jiggling against my back, too. Is this paradise, or what?
I guess all that squirming means you're enjoying this, huh? Arg. Oh, no.
I didn't mean to.
Huh? No, not that much. Guess I shouldn't have expected the world, then.
Nobody believes in me after all. But so be it.
What do I care? I'm perched in the lap of a real-life elf.
I can't believe this is actually happening.
I feel so bad for my dear, departed friend down there.
If only he was still around. I'd be bouncing off the walls. However, while we were enjoying ourselves. Well. If it isn't Kaijin.
Goodness me, what are you doing, bringing this vulgar monster into a high-class establishment like this? Who's that guy?
Looking to start a fight, it sounded like. Things quickly fell silent around us.
Even the girls sneered at this visitor. They must not have liked him too much, although they were polite enough to keep the scoffs very discreet. By dwarf standards, this one was quite tall and thin in stature, making him, well, an average human in size. Hey.
Boss.
You guys allowing monsters in here these days? No, an older female manager called out, but it's just a little slime, so.
It's still a monster. Ain't it?
You sayin' a slime's not a monster anymore?
No, sir, but. The manager stuttered noncommittally, trying to calm the man down, but the boar wasn't even paying attention. Clearly, he was after us.
Oh, great, one of the girls sighed.
That's Vesta, the minister. Speak of the devil. Well, I'll be. He did seem like the kind of guy who refuses to let go of a grudge. I could see it on his face.
You know what best suits a monster?
Vesta bellowed. This. Then he emptied the contents of his water glass over me.
I wasn't exactly a fan of that kind of provocation, but I kept myself in check. This was a government minister. I couldn't let my short temper get Kaijin or the manager of this place in trouble.
Wouldn't want them banned from the premises.
Just sit tight, let it pass, and. Hey. You think you can just pick on us all you want? With an audible kick at the table, Kaijin stood up. You think you can run around and make fun of my guest, Vesta?
You think I'm not gonna mind that? You think?
Hey, Kaijin, this is a top government official and stuff, isn't it?
You sure you're on good footing here? Vesta, to his credit, was just as startled and stepped back.
I boinged back a bit in surprise, too, cushioned amply by the chest of the elf behind me.
Not on purpose.
I swear. How dare you speak to me like that, you?
Vesta sputtered, still in shock. Will you shut up already?
Kaijin shouted, accentuating his point by launching a punch at the minister's face. A few moments later, he asked me, Hey, Rimuru, you were looking for someone to help you, right? Would I be good enough, maybe? Good enough?
More than.
But, really?
I supposed he'd quite literally just punched a one-way ticket out of the Dwarven Kingdom. Now he was making a verbal request. That's what I've been wanting to hear.
It'll be great working with you, Kaijin.
It would be. We could hammer out the details later.
If Kaijin was willing to come over, I was more than willing to invite him.
We didn't need no fancy contract. We do what we want, when we want. Kaijin and I sealed the deal with an emphatic nod. Just one thing. How were we gonna book it out of here?
Maybe a little prudence wasn't such a bad idea after all,
You create a lot of problems for yourself otherwise.
All the bravado in the world wasn't going to solve them, was it?
So,
as anyone could imagine, punching a government minister in the face presented a number of issues. My brother, muttered Kaido, a few security officers behind him.
What did you do this time? He was on duty today, not even he could get away with skipping shifts all the time.
Kaijin had given him an invite, but he'd refused, only to come to the nightclub anyway thanks to his brother's boorishness. Simply running would have been an easy enough plan for us, but chances were it'd be doomed from the start.
Humph! That fool! As 4 knights dragged Kaijin away, he shouted and pointed a wild finger at the minister.
He practically spat in the face of Rimuru, my client and the best patron I've ever had.
What's so bad about putting him in his place a little, huh? Vesta, for his part, hadn't overcome the shock yet. He was simply staring at us, blood still dribbling from his nose. It looked both pathetic and a little comical. Never saw it coming, I guess. The surprise probably kept it from even hurting.
Brother, Kaido whispered with a sigh, you don't put a government minister in his place like that. Either way, you're all coming with me.
He nodded to his men, then took me aside for a moment.
Just stay calm, all right?
I promise we'll treat you well. I wasn't planning to do anything else, of course.
Before I left, though, I sidled up to the manager of the place and tossed 5 gold pieces into her hand. There's some for your trouble in there, too,
I said to the surprised matron. We'll be back. It seemed like a decent place, after all. Wouldn't be nice if I never got to see the inside of it again.
So went my second arrest here in the Dwarven Kingdom, but I'm forgetting someone. Gobta.
He wasn't with us at the club.
Instead, he was atoning for his sundry idiotic behavior by undergoing what I like to call bagworm hell. I'd thought about hanging him by his feet at first, but that just seemed like cruelty for cruelty's sake, so instead I tied him up with sticky thread and let him hang from the ceiling.
Wait. He'd whined.
This is so mean, sir.
I want to come with you. I'd showed him no mercy this time.
Enough, you fool. I can't take any more of your blockheaded behavior.
If you don't like it, summon your Tempest Wolf buddy and have him help you out. Not that he could do it, I figured as I shut the door behind me.
A goblin was one thing, but a hobgoblin could probably go without food or drink for about a week straight. Still, if we were going to be held for a while, I'd have to break out and get him down sooner or later. For now, though, I filed it in the back of my mind. Was I being mean to him, maybe?
I thought I was, for a moment. But it was all right. He could deal. The 5 us were taken to the royal palace. Not that we were under very heavy guard. If anything, it seemed entirely voluntary. We wound up having to spend around 2 days in the castle jail room.
It wasn't so bad, the food looked decent, and we had all the comforts we needed in the place. It was less like a jail cell and more like an urban apartment shared by the 5 of us. We weren't treated too terribly, either.
I just had to lose my temper, and now I've got all of you in here with me.
I'm so sorry, guys. Kaijin apologized.
But none of his dwarven friends minded too much, either.
It's fine, Kaijin.
No problem at all.
Yeah, don't worry about it, boss. Besides, once we're released, we want to come with you, Kaijin. Yeah, can we come with you, Rimuru? I wasn't observant enough to tell what the third one wanted from me, but I got the gist well enough.
Ha!
Sure, we'll take care of all of you. You better be ready, though. Once we reach the village, you guys are gonna work. Got it?
We were already talking about life outside the big house. As prison terms went, it was pretty chill. It was the night of our second day.
By the way, it occurred to me to ask, why did that minister have it in so badly for you, Kaijin?
Was there some reason for it? Kaijin's expression immediately soured. With a sigh, he began to explain.
It turned out he used to be a captain in the palace's Royal Knight Corps, a leader of one of the 7 armies making up the whole system. 3 corps were devoted to behind-the-scenes work like engineering, supply, and emergency aid. 3 more, heavy strikers, magic strikers, and magic support, played more of a starring role.